Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to our meeting of December 17, 2020, and I'm opening this public meeting. This meeting is now open and is being held pursuant to Section 219-1 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. This is a public meeting to obtain input from the public on a proposed bylaw to change the composition of regional council. The proposed bylaw would change the number of members representing the City of Brampton and the Town of Caledon on regional council by increasing the number of councillors representing Brampton by 2 for a total of 9 members, and decreasing the number of councillors representing Caledon by 2 for a total of 3 members. The change in regional council's composition would be effective for the municipal election to be held October 2022. The public is invited to provide input on matters relating to the proposed change to council's composition. Catherine Lockyer, Regional Clerk and Interim Commissioner of Corporate Services, will provide a brief overview of the Municipal Act requirements and process to change the composition of Regional Council. Following this presentation, there will be an opportunity for people to make oral submissions on this matter. Can I make sure everybody's muted accordingly, please? Just make sure all of our guests and council colleagues are on mute. Thank you. So following this presentation from the clerk, there will be an opportunity for people to make oral submissions on the matter. Staff will also accept any written submissions you may wish to submit through the region.clerk@peelregion.ca email. Again, that's regional.clerk@peelregion.ca email until the close of the public meeting. The purpose of this meeting is to provide the public with an opportunity to make representations before Regional Council in respect of the proposed bylaw to change the composition of Regional Council. There will be no debate or discussion regarding the proposed bylaw or the public comments presented today at this meeting. No decision shall be made at this meeting. After a delegation has completed its presentation, members shall each have an opportunity to ask questions of the delegation for clarification purposes only, and without debate. If the delegate's answer to the clarifying question requires a further clarifying question, a member shall have one further opportunity to clarify. Councillors will be able to discuss the proposed bylaw as well as any other comments or concern raised by the public here today when staff report back to our special meeting of Regional Council that will be held later today. Confirmation of notification. I call on the Deputy Clerk to advise of requirements and the method by which notice of the meeting was given and confirm the dates that the notices were given. Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. Notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with Section 219(1) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, and Region of Peel Corporate Policy G0016 by publication in the following news media having general circulation in the Region of Peel. Brampton Guardian, December 3rd, 2020. Caledon Enterprise, December 3rd, 2020. Mississauga News, December 3rd, 2020. The notice of public meeting was posted on the Region's website as of November 30th, 2020, and the proposed bylaw was available to the public online as of December the 11th, 2020. In addition, notice was included in the Region's social media channels. There is a sign-in sheet located at the clerk's reception counter for anyone who wishes to make comments. Those who are listening online who wish to speak are asked to please send an email to regionalclerk@peelregion.ca. If you are speaking on behalf of a special interest group, we ask that you please identify the group prior to speaking.
Thank you. I now call on Catherine Lockyer, Regional Clerk and Interim Commissioner of Corporate Services, to explain the proposed bylaw. Catherine.
Thank you and good morning. Section 218(6) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended requires that a regional municipality review for each of its lower tier municipalities the number of members of its council that represent the lower tier. If within 2 years of the date that the new council is organized following the regular election in 2018, the regional municipality does not pass a bylaw to change for one or more of its lower tier municipalities the number of the members of its council that represent the lower tier municipality, or pass a resolution to affirm for each of its lower tier municipalities the number of the members of its council that represent the lower tier municipality, The Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing may make a regulation changing the composition of the council of the regional municipality. The Municipal Act requires that prior to enacting a bylaw to change the composition of regional council, public notice of council's intention to enact a bylaw must be given and at least one public meeting held to consider the matter. Today's public meeting fulfills that requirement, and the Deputy Clerk has confirmed that public notice has been given. At the special Regional Council meeting scheduled for later today, staff will provide a report of today's public meeting, and the proposed bylaw will be presented for enactment. If the bylaw is enacted by Regional Council, the bylaw will be forwarded to the local municipalities, requesting that they pass resolutions consenting or not consenting to the bylaw. In order to be valid, the bylaw must receive triple majority support. To achieve triple majority support, the following must occur. A majority of all votes on the upper tier council must be cast in favor of the bylaw. That means that at least 13 members of regional council must vote in favor of the bylaw. A majority of the councils of the lower tier municipalities forming part of the upper tier municipality must pass resolutions consenting to the bylaw. And thirdly, the total number of electors in the lower tier municipalities that passed resolutions consenting to the bylaw must form a majority of all the electors in the upper tier municipality. A bylaw to change the composition of regional council would not come into force until the day the new council is organized following the 2022 municipal election. The bylaw can only come into force for the 2022 election if the changes I have described are implemented before December 31st, 2021.
Thank you. That brings us to our public participation process oral submissions. I request that all persons wishing to make an address to address the proposal or ask questions be made through the chair. And I remind you all again of our 5-minute limit for deputations. And I hope to give you a nudge at around the 4-minute mark for any of you coming close. With that, let's go to our list of the people who have put their names forward for public participation in their oral submissions, starting with Sarah Clarkson. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, great. I'll just turn my video on. As mentioned, my name is Sarah Clarkson, and for those of you who do not know me, I have lived in Peel Region my whole entire life. I was born in Caledon, lived 16 years in Brampton, and was an employee of the city of Brampton for 9 years, and lived in the city of Mississauga for 16. I now make Caledon my home and have been there for 9 years. I'm a business owner, and our national office is located in Mississauga. I'm a 4th generation to Peel Region, with my ancestors settling in 1850 in Dixie, Ontario, which is in the Dixie and Dundas area of Mississauga. I come from a line of relatives who have served in politics. My great-uncle Grant Clarkson, who was a councillor in Mississauga and became Deputy Reeve of Mississauga in the late 60s, early 70s. My father, John Clarkson, was a Chinguacousy councillor and later became a Town of Caledon councillor and mayor of Caledon. He also sat on the first regional council when it was formed in 1973 and remained on council until 1986. Needless to say, Peel Region is important to me. This region originally was encompassed by 21 members, 10 in Mississauga, 6 Brampton, and 5 in Caledon. In speaking to Emma Kolb last week, the basis behind the split in the seats when they first began was to ensure all municipalities had a fair and balanced representation at the table, under the guise and mandate of the current Premier, Bill Davis. At the Regional Council meeting on November the 26th, the City of Brampton entered a last-minute item in regards to allocation of seats. No motion in the documentation, no recommendation, a document breaking out representation by population in the region. It has been apparent that Brampton does not have fair representation at the table, and Caledon has recognized and supported them in this. But what other options does Brampton have? With the triple majority vote in place, options are limited based on Mississauga holding 12 seats of the 24. The motion put forth was to remove 2 seats from Caledon, cutting Caledon's representation by 40%, leaving Mississauga at 12 and increasing Brampton by 2 for 9 seats. The urgency comes as the deadline to submit changes to the province is December 31st, 2020. I have a question for all of you at the region. Has this not been a mandate that was put on the table by the province for the last 2 years of this term? Where and why is this change coming up at the 11th hour, before the deadline, in the middle of a pandemic, right before the Christmas break? A shotgun motion out of nowhere, blindsiding most of Caledon's representatives. Has there been no research or review of this prior to November 26th? And can I ask how removing 2 seats from Caledon rectifies the imbalance at the table and creates efficiency within the region? The argument provided was that the region should be represented by population. Currently, there are 444 regions in Ontario. Of those 444 regions, 18 have divided the representation by population, 6% of the regions. We are part of the 94% of the regions that have a different composition. Peel Region is unique. We have a blend of both urban and rural communities. That is a fact. Your role in this council is to represent all constituents, the entire region. How is this motion, this recommendation fair? How is this an equal balance? How is this supporting rural area and makes up 56% of the land mass of the region? The town of Caledon has the largest growth expectancy in the region's projections over the next 20 years. As a business owner, I look at this move as a Band-Aid solution that, as Mayor Brown stated, kind of fixes the problem.
Sarah, about 1 minute, Sarah. Carry on.
Thank you. Yet creates others. A let's cut off our nose to spite our face approach. Does it not seem crystal clear that this is a premature move, that is a lazy way of gaining 2 seats without looking at the strategic goals and future of the region of Peel? Can I ask how exactly a mayor and 2 councillors are going to effectively and successfully manage a municipality with the fastest growth rate in Ontario? Are there other options? Why wouldn't 2 seats be removed from Mississauga? They would still have their majority vote at the table, understanding the basis of this change and the urgency was the ask from the province to the regions to build efficiencies. This is not a downsize in seats. What are some alternative options that work to be fair and balanced? What if it went back to 21 seats on the region?
Sarah, I'm going to have to ask you to make a concluding sentence, please.
Great. I want everyone at the table to really think about this, if this is the right way of doing this. And before closing, Mr. Chair, as a constituent of Caledon, at this time, I would like to hear from my mayor to understand his position and view on this situation. From Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. All of my colleagues will have their chance to speak when we have the formal session at 1:30, but this is a moment for clarifying questions only, and I have a speaker on my list, a questioner. Councillor Sinclair? Ian, I can't hear you. I see you on my list.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, very good. Then I'll thank you, Sarah, for your presentation. We will go on to our next speaker, 6-2, Joe Hornick. Joe, please.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and councillors, for having this meeting today. I'm here to speak in favor of the proposal to redistribute 2 seats following the next election from Caledon to Brampton. The reform of the regional presentations have been discussed now for years, and it's nice to see we actually have a reasonable proposal in front of us that could possibly be reached. Past proposals have looked to expand the number of councillors vastly in order to keep the current number of councillors in Caledon at 5, and I really think that's an unacceptable proposal from a taxpayer's point of view. I understand the disappointment of Caledon councillors. I mean, when you've had something given to you and it's taken away, that you feel you deserve, it's a hard thing to do, but reform is never easy. And there's never any agreement when we don't have a set method of reorganizing the organization every few years. 5 years ago, Councillor Tovey proposed that we could have a lasting and flexible solution by weighting each councillor's votes, depending on how many residents they have. And perhaps that would have been a better, more acceptable thing to Caledon at this point, but it's not what we have today. My suggestion would be, Caledon, actually, I think you should redirect your anger at the province. I really think that the region of Peel should have been broken up. Peel is fundamentally unbalanced with its power structures and its populations between the three municipalities. In a way, it's vastly different than any other regional government in the province of Ontario. And other regional governments have more of a balance between municipalities that have similar sizes. I mean, Peel, we do not. I believe that the three municipalities would be better off going down their separate destinies with service boards sharing services where necessary to save on costs for residents. I mean, a great example is Peel Police, which is shared between Brampton and Mississauga. I think that could have provided a better method, but it's not where we're at today. It would have been better for Caledon. You could have, represented your own unique geography and your future intensification by governing your own path had that happened. It's not where we're at right now. I mean, I think the premise of reassigning these has got to be representation by population. It's a fundamental fact or principle of democracy to do that. And as has been stated many times when discussing this issue over the years, several Mississauga and Brampton councillors have populations greater than the entire population of Caledon. One councillor representing the same number of residents as 5 Caledon councillors. I believe that that stretches the representation by population argument a bit too far for a municipal level. Some speakers may come up after me and mention something about, well, what about Prince Edward Island? You know, representation by population is not necessarily a pure equality in all cases. And our wonderful Canadian Federation certainly gives us that example of Prince Edward Island, which has 4 times the number of members of parliament than it otherwise would by population. I don't think that applies in this case for 2 reasons. First, the grand bargain that was Canadian Federation was entered into by the provinces willingly. And I would argue at this point, I don't know that Mississauga is any longer a willing partner, as expressed by the sentiment of our councillors, and is not uniformly, but widely felt by our residents. Secondly, and most importantly, I think Caledon has a power that Prince Edward Island has never been granted, and that's the power of veto at council. Currently, the quorum bylaw allows you to leave any meeting and thereby stop its proceedings. The regional bylaw quoting the regional bylaw, it states, 13 members of council, including at least 1 representative from each local municipality, are necessary for quorum at a council meeting. That means you can step away at any time and end a meeting should you not like it. You have a veto.
Joe, no 1 minute, please.
Beyond the power of the veto, I think the 3 councillors that Caledon still has is more than will be more than warranted by its population for at least until 2050. Brampton will still remain short. Finally, I'd mentioned the argument of geography is brought up a number of times. There are some parallels in other legislative bodies. However, there are other regions in Ontario where rural and northern representatives have just the same size as Caledon councillors would have under a 3-councillor model. I would argue that we're proving the point also with why this isn't necessary anymore. The technologies that connecting us at this meeting shows that you can connect with your residents and that every telephone is a platform with video chats and pictures that you can describe problems to your residents back and forth. No doubt the councillors here have already been using this. And if the House of Commons in Ottawa can connect MPs from across the country, can Caledon do no less? COVID-19 has shown us that government has to adapt to new realities that it has faced with us, and technology can engage their citizens with that.
Joe, your concluding sentence, please.
It's not perfect, but it is an improvement over the current. And it will need to be looked at again as demographics change in the future because Brampton is still short. Caledon, you may feel that this hurts you today, but I still say you punch above your weight. You still have overrepresentation, which is helping you. You still have the veto, and you have very fine councillors.
I'm going to have to leave it at that.
Thank you.
Joe, thank you for your presentation. Next up, 6.3, Brad Butt on behalf of the Mississauga Board of Trade. Brad.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of council, and members of the public who have joined us today. On behalf of the Mississauga Board of Trade, we support the proposed bylaw to realign the composition of Peel Regional Council for Mississauga to have 12 members, Brampton to have 9 members, and Caledon to have 3 members. The principle of representation by population must be respected as much as possible within the constraints of the Region of Peel Act, that no one municipality may have more than 50% of the representation on council. While we consider this restriction unfair and that this unfairness has existed since the creation of the Regional Municipality of Peel on January the 1st, 1974, we believe that the situation in the city of Brampton now warrants more representation on Peel Council to better reflect its residential population. The Region of Peel is the level of municipal government which is responsible for a wide array of services paid for with property tax revenue, including housing, social services, public health, law enforcement, major roads, land use planning, residential garbage collection and waste management, and of course, water and wastewater services. The proper administration of these services and accountability to the local elected representatives is paramount. From the business perspective and the members that we represent, the commercial and industrial tax base contributes very significantly to the revenues of the Region of Peel. And while businesses do not get a vote for their local representatives, there is an expectation that they will represent the interests of business property taxpayers in proportion to the populations of their local municipalities. Simply stated, there can be no taxation without representation. Municipal property taxes paid to the local and regional governments represent about 50% of the property tax bill, with the other 50% for provincial education taxes. Businesses deserve their fair representation at the municipal level, as they do get at the provincial level, based upon representation by population. In fact, the business community in Mississauga and Brampton contribute the vast majority of commercial and industrial property taxes paid to the region, and therefore should also have the vast majority of political representation on regional council. So in conclusion, we offer our support to the proposed bylaw, and if supported, provide a fair representation of elected officials on Peel Regional Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Moaz Ahmed. Moaz?
Good morning. Can I confirm that you can hear me and see me?
Yes, please proceed.
Thank you. Through the chair, good morning and thank you to Regional Council and staff and residents who have joined us today. The last time that I spoke about regional government, it was to Michael Fenn and Ken Sailing for the Regional Government Review. They were interested enough in my arguments to ask me questions for approximately 20 minutes, so perhaps there's something in my ideas and what I said. What I said to them is what I'll say to you today. People evolve, populations evolve, and our government should evolve to meet those needs as well. In this region, we have moved from settlements to townships to counties to county to regional municipality. There were people who did not agree with the changes then as they happened, as with the changes that we're discussing today. But here we are. The Region of Peel is 46 years old, and it has been evolving throughout that time. I'm here to support the proposed bylaw. I realize that many Caledon residents would not agree to reduce the number of votes that they have in council, but I also think that there is a very important fundamental need to have fair and equitable representation, and a lot of that fairness comes from fair representation by population. I also know that the effective representation comes from more than just votes in the council chambers or within the council. This is why I believe that this council should agree today to developing enduring solutions that ensure Caledon will always be important and will always have the services that it should receive. I would be happy to share some thoughts about those solutions should council wish to ask for them at the end of this point. I'm just going to speak very quickly and say I want to conclude by pointing out that the Regional Municipality of Peel has advantages that other regions do not have. 3 municipalities ought to make cooperation much easier. Other regional municipalities have many more cities, towns, and villages, and many more governments to work with. They do not have the industrial opportunities, the economic base, the infrastructure that the Region of Peel has. I've seen that Regional Council has been able to work together and find solutions and face challenges together, and I know that you will continue to do so. Finally, the Regional Municipality of Peel has a population of 1.5 million people. That's the 3rd largest city in Canada by population. Your collected voice is fundamental to helping people in Peel live, move, work, and thrive, especially now with the pandemic and the challenges we are facing and will continue to face over the next few years as we recover. Please act appropriately. Thank you very much.
Wes, thank you. And I now have questions of clarifications for the deputants. Councillor Downey, I think it's noted here from staff, you wanted a question of clarification for Brad Butt on behalf of the Board of Trade. Is that correct, Councillor Downey?
Yes, Chair.
Very good. Brad, are you still on the line? I don't see your face. Brad, can you hear me? And are you still with us? Joanna, I apologize. I only saw your name come on the list. Do you have a question of this deputant, Joanna?
Yes, actually, through you,
Please,
Chair.
please proceed.
Thank you for your deputation. I appreciate it. And I think that you've done a really good job of underlining many of the points that I also agree with. I'm wondering if you're, when you talk about rep by population, the Municipal Act assumes that that population is homogeneous. Do you believe that representation by a greater population should also be measured in other manners?
Through the chair, Councillor, I believe that there is a fundamental base for the representation, and then also the representation by population should matter. Essentially, I believe that there are ways to increase the weight of Caledon's vote while still managing to increase the weight of Brampton's vote. And there are solutions that the Regional Council can agree on and implement, which would sustain, as I say, the weight of Caledon within Regional Council, even though the number of council votes would be reduced.
Right, I agree. I believe that the, sorry, I guess, okay, thank you. Thank you.
I can be more specific if you wish.
I know, I think asked and answered. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Downey. Another question of clarification, Mayor Thompson.
Thank you. I had it for Joe. I can definitely ask it here. Are you aware the City of Ottawa is 80% rural? It's a combination of rep by pop and representation by area. Are you aware of that?
Through the chair, should I respond?
Please.
Yep.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mayor Thompson. I am aware that the City of Ottawa has 80% rural balance. I'm also aware that the City of Ottawa has just approved to increase their council complement to 25. I'm also aware that the City of Ottawa has a smaller population than the regional municipality of Peel. And I think that all those factors should be considered in these conversations. I think that in a more ideal situation, in a more ideal representation situation, the regional municipality of Peel would have more than the current complement. However, I've also seen that the provincial government has recently decided to change the composition of the City of Toronto and reduce the number of councillors to 25. Perhaps the provincial government will decide that 25 will be the cap that they will allow for large municipal governments. I do not have answers to those questions, but I am, of course, curious to see what is going to happen. What I would say is that governments have evolved, and the number of councillors in a council is not the only factor in how governments provide services. Mr. Hornick mentioned the services boards. I also mentioned those to to Fenn and Sailing when they were doing the regional review. I think that there are many opportunities to continue discussing that, as well as discussing the composition of council and committees and how there are opportunities for councillors and mayors to work together at the highest level within the region.
Thank you. Again, questions of clarification. Councillor Innes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your delegation. I appreciate the response in saying that all the municipalities need to work together, basically in the greater good, which is what we are all here to do. So I guess my question to you is, because you do seem to have some other suggestions that we're not actually getting to today, and I think that part of what Caledon has been saying is this doesn't need to be rushed. that we should be having better discussions about this, that we should be including people such as yourselves, and with an extension being granted by the minister, what is your response to this being passed today after being walked on only after a couple of weeks and not allowing a discussion with community members such as yourself to actually get into the potential solutions where we could work better in the greater good and have better representation across all three municipalities?
Councillor, that's a very good question. It's also a very pointed question. Essentially, I know that people in regional government, people in government and in council do not like surprises. Frankly, nobody likes, unexplained surprises, and that is reasonable. Should the minister be approving a change, I would put it to council to decide what they think is the most appropriate response. Essentially, I would also say that the composition of council, as I've said repeatedly, is not the only factor in ensuring that services are properly provided and received by residents of different municipalities within Peel, and to ensure that Caledon's voice is continuously heard on this regional council for the remainder of however long this regional council exists.
So just to follow up, would you...
Just one, go ahead.
Would you then say that those options and possibilities of what could happen and should happen, should they not be part of the whole solution, the whole package that is being presented to the public in this public forum? So I guess my question is, if the minister has granted us an extension to the end of March to have this discussion, would you support us taking that time and hearing and coming up with complete summation of what is the best course of action and presenting it to the public and to the minister at that time?
I think it would be reasonable to do that. However, I also believe that sometimes moving forward just has to be happening, and waiting isn't always the best solution. I cannot speak to what council will decide today. I suggest that you, as I've said in my presentation, make the appropriate decision based on the population of the region of Peel and the influence that it should and could have if you are all speaking and working together.
Moaz, thank you for your presentation. Next up, I have Terry Miller.
Mr. Chairman, thanks very much. Very interesting listening to all of the debate so far, or at least the commentary. But for many councillors, the composition bylaw presented today must feel like moving the deck chairs around on the good ship Peel. It's not reform. Real reform was missed last year when the Government of Ontario's review of regional governments came up, and it came up short. No changes. Representation on the regional council today skews the notion of representation by population badly. And while the framers of the region of Peel, the Government of Ontario, clearly didn't have representation by population or equal sharing of the tax load on their minds, the growth in Peel has made representation and taxation a major issue. The fault is clearly with the provincial government. Last year, the Government of Ontario did nothing to embrace the political considerations of growth as a major factor in reforming the region of Peel. They refused and/or ignored considerations of reforming regions to take into account representation and taxation, a big issue. They rejected cogent arguments to increase representation on the region of Peel to 32. They refused and rejected considerations of separate cities in Peel. They refused and sidelined the dissolution of the region of Peel, and they rejected the opportunity to create a major city of 1.5 million on Toronto's west end. But it is what it is. The province is a culprit here and have fostered inadvertently an internecine confrontation in this bylaw. Clearly, the first elected members of the region of Peel never intended this to happen. Peel Regional Council set out to be a cooperative venture, moving, not static like the county system. Change and innovation was encouraged. In 1974, regionalism was new to us, and many of us had no idea what the province was creating west of Toronto, but neither did the province of Ontario. In 74, aside from assuming many powers that were rudimentary services for people, The county appeal became the region appeal and not much else. The intention was to create a new organization to deal with growth and to provide services more substantially to the residents of Peel. Those good intentions need cooperation from all parties, but the province saw the regions as opposition and as a child of the province, not as a partner in government. So here we are today, arguing the composition of the regional council. How absurd. So, in the 46 years the region has existed, Caledon has grown from 21,000 to 65,000. Brampton grew from 91,000 to an estimated 764,000. And Mississauga grew from 222,000 to 854,000. Clearly, regional representation is out of whack. When council has 5 members on the regional council, and Brampton is 7, and Mississauga seats all its councillors. So you may ask, why did the province prescribe 5 representatives for Caledon in 1974? The question is not lost in the sands of time. The answer has to do with the amount of land being available for growth, compliance of municipalities to accommodate that growth, and the availability of services. Clearly, the opportunity for growth in Caledon providing services were available played a large part in the share of the regional representation. Also, Caledon's composition in 74 included 4 of the 10 former Peel County municipalities. And in order to sell the region appeal, it was necessary to provide a maximum of 5 regional councillors to that mix. I remember that very clearly in those discussions. Very, very clear, because I was there. Last year, and for a number of years, Mississauga championed separation from the region appeal.
Terry, 1 minute, please.
Thank you. That separation would have meant dissolution of the region. Mississauga has nearly finished its growth and has become a mature city. So Caledon can rail against Brampton for wanting better representation on Peel Council. They can think Brampton presumptuous in seeking to seat all their councillors. But the real target should be the present government at Queen's Park, not Brampton. It might be a surprise for some, but as early as 2012, Brampton gave sufficient warning that it was seeking reform, not new stuff. While the fairness of changing the composition of the regional council was challenged by reordering the composition of the council, that change only partially recognizes Brampton's build-out. By 2040, or maybe before, Brampton's population will be 950,000. Mississauga might be close to 1 million, and Caledon may very well be 100,000. Brampton and Mississauga will be close to 2 million people.
Terry, your last concluding sentence, please.
All right. There are no choices available to Brampton except for the distribution of the regional council seats. The province has plagued the region at 25 members, and Mississauga may seek equal representation. Brampton can get no relief from the provincial government. That case was closed last year, so Brampton must choose another path and seek better representation through the composition bylaw. By the way, there's no guarantee that the minister is going to sign this bylaw.
Terry, I'm going to have to, Terry, thank you. I'm going to have to call it there. There is a question of clarification. Before I go, can I just remind everyone, please double ensure that you are muted if you are not speaking, because we're still getting a little feedback. So please, everyone, ensure that you're muted accordingly. Question of clarification, Councillor Downey.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Miller. Thank you very much for your delegation. I'm just wondering if you're aware that Caledon has always supported Brampton's additional seats at the regional table.
Yeah, I'm sure they have. I know they have. And thanks for the question, but the statement. I know they have done that, and it doesn't make a single bit of difference. Really, Councillor Downey, what you should be doing is going to Queen's Park and demanding that they relook at some of the options that were provided to them under the special commission that was sent last year.
I can assure you, Mr. Miller, I have.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. That's true.
I think the issue lies within the triple majority.
Well, the issue lies with a lot of things, and not just a triple majority. That's just one thing. There's all kinds of things that need to be looked at.
Okay, we're getting. Thank you. We're getting into debate again, asked and answered. Terry, thank you very much for your presentation. 6-6 had been Sherry Briowski, but unfortunately last moment she had a passing in the family and she sent her regrets. We wanted to send back our condolences to her.
Chair?
Yes.
Sorry, my name was on the list for task a question.
Well, I didn't see it here. I apologize, Councillor Innes. If you have a clarifying question of Mr. Miller, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Miller, in one of your last statements, you had mentioned that by the end of this growth period that we are currently planning for, that Mississauga and Brampton will be at almost 1 million people, and that Caledon will be at 100,000.
Well, that's what the estimate is that I got anyway.
So that's incorrect. So I just want that clarified, because there's a big difference. Caledon will actually be at 300,000, taking the majority of the greenfield development allocated to the region of Peel, and will have the highest growth trajectory in all of the Greater Toronto area over that period of time, far exceeding what Milton had just recently gone through. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Moving on, I'm on to William Motley. William, please.
Good morning, Council, and thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, I believe you've all had my presentation given to you, so I may ad-lib as I go through. But as a resident of Peel, I'm here to question the whole wording and validity of that resolution and ask it to be set aside. The request is made mainly because I believe the wording is flawed, and furthermore, it doesn't really have any reasonable logic to it. I realize there's a lot of history here. Whereas the region of Peel councillors are paid by Peel Region to represent Peel Region, and not as worded in the resolution representing the City of Brampton. That resolution should have taken place with the City of Brampton meeting and then presented to the region. Furthermore, I feel the resolution formed by the regional municipality of Peel infers and falsely recognises that there are representatives of Caledon, Brampton and Mississauga. I feel that perception just keeps going on. It's been going on for 20 years or maybe more, and you're not really fixing the issue by just, as somebody termed it, moving the deck chairs around the ship. There's a legal and ethical issue involved in serving on two councils, and this comes from a quote from a report done by Brock University, and I give you the notes on that, and deals with Niagara. But it really deals with the double direct representation, and at this point I'm directing that at every councillor in Peel. The double direct gives you the ethical and practical dilemmas that comes with double direct. This quote and in the entire report is not without merit, and it begins to enlighten us on the Election Act and the mess that was left by the province. And I see a distinct thread going through all the presentations this morning that this leads back to the province and the mess that they left, and you've not been able to sort it out. However, the province moves at a very slow rate, and it is entirely within the power of the Peel region to be leaders in Ontario and pass a policy bylaw to get rid of double direct representation. The discussion on this would be apropos as we look for ways to bring trust and faith back into the political spectrum. It would also make the position more acceptable as a part-time position and open it to a greater number of candidates, which is another value added and democratic move forward. As the resolution also attempts to balance representation by population principles in the council, well, if you believe this is consistent with the electorate's will of Peel, you'd be well advised to follow Caledon's example of doing a ward review and establish regional wards. Thus, the electorate may elect regional councillors satisfying those that crave the rep by population elections. And it's also that these are indeed better suited to the upper tier government for hard services. There have been other studies made around who's doing which services, and I did give you a note on that. Regional wards do not necessarily follow the municipal ward boundaries, may or may not include tax base or resources as part of the guiding formula. Although I personally feel natural resource representation is extremely important in Peel, a more balanced Peel Council without municipal city wards boundaries should be a priority for the Peel Regional Council, and not following the archaic and geocentric politics based on municipal boundaries.
1 minute.
The aggressive and verbal arguments we see today within the Regional Council and committees over geographical, or shall we say historical boundaries, is not conducive to efficient business and government practice, especially in the upper tier council chamber. It's just not acceptable. I might add these behaviours roll over into administration and how they position reports and presentations. And you all need to move forward to a better place. And remember, it is Peel region on the corporation registration, not Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Next up, Mr. Derek Clark. Mr. Clark.
Good morning. My name is Derek Clark, and I am a resident of Caledon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my views today. I am opposed to the proposed bylaw to change the composition of regional council. Right now, there is a lot of emotion in Caledon. It's more than the pandemic. There's emotion over the potential development of the Greenbelt and the 413 highway. And clearly there's extreme opposition in Caledon over the proposed bylaw to cut our regional representation by 40%, as seen by the number of written submissions today. I know our 4 regional councillors and mayor very well, and I can tell you that no one knows more, does more, or cares more about Caledon than these 5 individuals. Reducing the number of regional councillors by 2 in Caledon will dilute their effectiveness, it will reduce their service levels, and it will compromise their ability to represent all of the residents and businesses. If I use a hockey analogy to describe how I feel about the proposed bylaw, I would say that Caledon has been kicked off of the first line and put on the third line, which means less ice time, or in political terms, a much smaller voice at the regional council table. In effect, this bylaw permanently places 2 of our regional representatives in the penalty box with no chance of playing again. This is not right, and it is certainly not fair given the explosive population growth that is coming to Caledon. In hockey terms, this is unsportsmanlike conduct. You don't build a championship hockey team by dividing the players. You build it through respect, strong leadership, good communication, inspiration, and compromise so that there is buy-in to the vision. That has not happened here with the proposed bylaw. How is a divided team good for Peel Region? Please consider that question before you vote today. Caledon is more than a place. It is a people. It is a way of life. And that way of life is different than it is in Mississauga and Brampton. And today we are fighting to preserve that way of life by opposing this bylaw. We need to look at the big picture and the long-term growth plan in Caledon. It is misleading to use the current population figures in Caledon as a basis for reducing our representation. As per the 2051 draft allocation in the growth plan, the population in Caledon will skyrocket from 77,000 to 300,000, which represents a 390% increase. So we do have justification for maintaining our current level of 5 seats at the regional Peel. Caledon is unique, and we need effective rural representation. So I would respectfully ask that you take that perspective into consideration before you vote. And finally, I would say that all of you took an oath to serve the people. You swore to be true, faithful, and impartial in your duties as a regional councillor. Each of you have a long history of defending the people, advocating for the people, and standing by the people. So I would remind all of you that you not only represent Mississauga and Brampton, but you also represent Caledon at the regional level. You need to stand by your words and your oath, and now more than ever, you need to stand up for the people of Caledon. The question I have for all of you is, what are the benefits to Caledon if the proposed bylaw is approved? I'm looking forward to hearing your answers in the next few minutes. And if there are little to no benefits for Caledon, then I would argue that you have a moral obligation to defer this decision and to oppose this bylaw, given your oath and the widespread lack of support in our community to reduce our representation. There are 25 very bright and talented people that sit around the regional council table, including the chair. Are you trying to tell me that you can't sit down and negotiate a win-win scenario for all three municipalities? There was no negotiation on this bylaw. It was a one-way conversation. Caledon has to have a meaningful say about the direction of Caledon. Right now, we need a balanced approach, open minds, and good governance at the regional council table. I'm confident that with strong leadership, continued dialogue, and robust public engagement by all three municipalities, that we can find a workaround solution that provides Brampton with incremental seats without having to reduce Caledon's representation. In my opinion, the best way to guarantee the future sustainability and long-term prosperity for all residents of Peel Region is to have a strong, stable, unified team at the regional level. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next deputant is Dave Capel, Chair of New Brampton. Mr. Capel.
First of all, Chair, thank you for having me on. Mayor Crombie, Mayor Brown, Mayor Thompson, and members of council and staff. My name is Dave Capel. I'm a chair of an organization called New Brampton. New Brampton is a non-for-profit organization, self-funded, has about 4,000 supporters, which is about 4 years old. The supporters of New Brampton are primarily folks who are passionate about the city of Brampton and the region of Peel and the province of Ontario. New Brampton supporters are from all walks of life. We have folks like Davis family part of it, Rice family part of it, along with doctors, lawyers, architects from all walks of life. Folks are part of New Brampton. New Brampton believes that, New Brampton's prime focus is to assist and help the city of Brampton and region of Peel and the province, including federal government, wherever we can to assist, improve our region and Brampton. Brampton has about 700,000 population, as you know, with 7 councillors. In comparison, Caledon, less than 100,000 population with 5 councillors. It's important for Brampton to have a fair representation. And the reason I'm saying that is, if Brampton does well, the region does well. If the region does well, province of Ontario does well. We want to ensure that one of the 9th largest city of Brampton has a fair say in the region, because it affects 700,000 people. These are people who vote, these people who bring business to us, these people who pay taxes, and they need to have a fair representation. How? I'm not a politician, so please forgive me. We are most of us are business owners, and all I know is how we do it is up to you. But it's a fair representation of Brampton is extremely important for Brampton and for Ontario. Brampton can either be a load on Ontario or a contributor. So therefore, I'm confident, like Caledon councillors, they have been very helpful, very cooperative. Same for Mississauga councillors. I hope you will make the right decision and support this motion. If you have any questions, let's stick around. Thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you, Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, Chair, to the delegate. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a number of family members in your group in Brampton, and I'm wondering if you believe that Brampton should be pushing for 4 seats as opposed to just 2, and having all of its local councillors sit at the table.
Personally, yes. Personally, we would like that, because I think 9 is not enough. I would love to see 11. But you know what? I think we are in a democracy. We are a region. We need to work together. So I'm going to trust our regional councillors and our mayors to make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Susie Godfrey, Executive Director, Downtown Brampton Business Improvement Area. Ms. Godfrey.
Okay, good morning. And I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair and regional council members, for allowing me to delegate this morning. I'm here on behalf of the downtown Brampton business community, and I'm here today to publicly state that the downtown Brampton BIA supports the proposed change to the composition of the Region of Peel Council. The BIA represents approximately 320 businesses and 140 landlords in our downtown core. And the businesses of downtown Brampton feel that equal representation by population should be a guiding principle for fairness and accountability to the local residents of Brampton and taxpayers across the Region of Peel. And of course, our downtown businesses. The downtown Brampton core is currently going through some tremendous change, and we have a number of revitalization initiatives currently underway. They include regional infrastructure replacement of our main streets and the water mains, the Riverwalk, the LRT extension, the Center for Innovation, Ryerson Cyber Security Catalyst, the CN Metrolinx track expansion, the Transit Hub study, and development in our uptown and downtown cores. For these reasons, the downtown community feels these community needs to be addressed in a fair and democratic manner. The downtown Brampton BIA has been reaching out to the Region of Peel for the last few years with regards to a number of concerns revolving around community health and safety. And I'm here today to just publicly state we support this proposed change for more seats at the table for Brampton. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegate is Jermaine Chambers. Jermaine. Jermaine, don't know if you can hear me, but you are our next delegate, Jermaine Chambers. If not, I'll try to double back. That brings us to Delegate 6.12, Grant Borjinski. Grant. Grant, are you there and ready to go? If so, I cannot hear you.
Good morning.
Very good. Carry on, Grant.
Okay. Great, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Council. First off, thank you for providing the public an opportunity to speak to this motion. As stated, my name is Grant Borjinski. I was born and raised in Mississauga. I'm 36. I remember when the Marilyn Monroe Towers were just vacant land. Today, that small plot of land supports 5 condos with 1,856 condo units. That's real growth, resulting in more people with families that are growing. This growth is going to continue to happen whether we like it or not. This growth is not going to be even and consistent over the planet's geography either. I mean, the quote says, the only consistent in our world is change. And we can all sit back and listen and say, yes, Grant, we get that there's uneven growth. So what? So what? My answer to that isn't a statement, but a question. What is government? Why do we have councillors? Why do we have mayors? A government was originally formed through the organization of a community, a collection of good people with similar concepts and ideas who, together, make the preservation and evolution of their species possible. It wasn't formed with the intention of any one particular group to hold on to power, to have an agenda to perform any specific task. It's to support the community, which comprised of good people who all contribute to society. And each and every one of those people matter. In a democratic society, each person has a voice. It doesn't matter your wealth, your religion, your sex, you all have a voice. That is democracy. That's how we've evolved as a species. We work together and ensure the needs and wants of every person is voiced and heard. When a society starts to drift away from that, well, there's a problem. When specific voices aren't represented, when we allow to let this go unchecked, we're saying that some people's voices are more or less important than others. That's not in the spirit of democracy and morally unjustified. When the people are not the main focus of attention, then that must be corrected. So in conclusion, we must maintain the guiding principle of our democracy. Political representation needs to be even and consistent based on population. So I'm going to use my voice today to humbly ask the council to put emotions aside and remember why we are all here, to fairly and equitably represent the people. That's why I support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Downey?
Thank you through you, Chair, and thank you very much for your delegation. I really appreciate the language that you used in terms of equity, and I'm wondering if you're aware that 62.3% of Peel's population are visible minorities.
I'm not apprised of the specific facts of that, no.
Do you believe that that is reflective of your council?
I think we try to aim for perfection, but we have to remember that the world isn't perfect, humans aren't perfect, and we're not going to have a perfect democratic system. So is it perfect? I don't think it is perfect, but I don't think any one person or any one government is perfect.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your presentation, Grant. I'm going to double back, shout out one more time for Jermaine Chambers. Jermaine, are you there? If not, I'm on to 16.3. Chris Drew, representing the Drew family. Chris.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Chair. My name is Chris Drew, and I'm representing my parents and my brother who have been Peel Region residents for almost 40 years. The picture behind me in my virtual background is St. Paul's United Church in the heart of downtown Brampton, opposite City Hall. It was built in 1885 with Credit Valley brownstone from Caledon. And the view is looking north on Main Street, which then, of course, becomes here Ontario again. And I thought it was an appropriate picture for the discussion today. And really what I think the picture illustrates is that we're all neighbors. At the end of the day, we are all neighbors and highly, highly integrated. And the boundaries between Caledon, Brampton, and Mississauga, at the end of the day, are not physical boundaries. They are artificial boundaries. They are lines that have been drawn on a map virtually these days on Google Maps, for instance, or on your website. And at the end of the day, people and residents and businesses move across those boundaries all the time. It's a highly, highly integrated region. And to that end, you know, my parents live in Brampton, but my mother for many years was employed as a nanny in Caledon, just outside of the boundary of Brampton. And, you know, they're neighbors, they're friends, they're colleagues. And I think the Caledon neighbors that we know would be very open-minded to some of the concern that Brampton has around fairness. Just as Brampton residents are concerned and have opinions and want Caledon to succeed, particularly because many Brampton residents enjoy the trails and parks in Caledon. So what I'm saying is that these are highly integrated regions and people, and that we're all neighbors. And I think that actually the general public does care about their neighbors a great deal, and you know, may not be thinking that seats on a council are the number one priority. In that, again, the average working person or the average resident out there has a lot of things in their mind, and you know, is just trying to get by on a day-to-day basis, especially during COVID. So I just wanted to highlight that neighborly point. I have heard some deputations, and I did read all of the written deputations, many of them from the town of Caledon, where people were concerned about the timing of this, or why is it happening now? And my only point on that would be that, you know, I have faith that elected officials, including you, can multitask and do many things at many times. Yes, we're in COVID. Yes, it's a pandemic. But from what I've observed, the town of Caledon, the city of Brampton, and the city of Mississauga have been extremely proactive on COVID and its response, and have been trying its very hardest to manage that very well. So the notion that a municipal or regional or town government can't multitask, I don't believe that. And just as we were speaking, Metrolinx released a request for proposals for a $10 billion Ontario Line transit project. So there's been a lot of discussion about the province today, but the province is multitasking. It's dealing with COVID, but it's also working on big infrastructure projects. I have faith that Peel Region can do the same, even though it's having this discussion at the moment. The other thing I really want to point out is I've looked at the Region of Peel website on the committees and advisories board section, and I have some suggestions. There's been a lot of talk about the role of Caledon. How will Caledon have its voice with only 2 seats? This is a terrible situation. And I'm looking at the committees and advisory boards, and I have some suggestions where the Region of Peel could add some committees, and some committees, some voluntary citizen committees with some maybe representation from the Region of Peel, that would actually highlight some of the assets that the town of Caledon has, like the opportunity for cycling tourism. There could be a cycling tourism advisory committee. With an aging population, particularly with my parents, the ability for Brampton residents to visit Caledon, to go to small villages like Bell Fountain, for example, or to the Downey's Farm, or other
1 minute, 1 minute, Drew, 1 minute.
Thank you, is a great opportunity. So you could have a committee, a citizens advisory committee, specifically to encourage residents to work together and walk trails together to get some physical exercise. That's been a key priority of Mayor Brown, for instance, in the city of Brampton, and other members of council from Brampton. So I just wanted to highlight those points that at the end of the day, we are neighbors who are highly integrated. Governments can multitask. This is an important issue for Brampton that I think people in Caledon are open-minded about, because they recognize that it's been a discussion about fairness for many, many years. The city of Brampton population increased by 50%. And so I hope that this decision can move forward on, and you do have other ways for Caledon to be represented, particularly look at your committees and board opportunities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Clarifying questions, Councillor Downey.
I apologize. My hand was up the last time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Moving on, Paramjeet Singh Birdie, you're up. Paramjeet, you're ready to go.
Hello.
Hello, welcome, and please proceed.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Respected Chair, member of the Council, and my fellow regional residents. Good morning to everyone, and really feeling good after many years. I'm here in the regional meeting to present my city of Brampton. First of all, I want to thank region to allow me to participate in this meeting after a long time. Today, I'm here to stand for my city of Brampton to have a deserving and better representation at Region of Peel. In support of my stand, I just want to highlight few important points, because so many statements already been done and many things already been said. Now, I just want to put 3-4 points. Number one is total number of regional councillors in the region is 24, with a population of approximately 1.5 million people. Regional councillors in representing Brampton are only 6, with a population of roughly 700,000 people. This 700,000 people are those who are on the record of the city and are living on the ground. But there are many more people, many more residents who are living in the basements and who are not on the record of the city, but they are part and parcel of our city of Brampton. All the official numbers showing that Brampton, with a population of about 45% of the region, only have representation of 24% at the regional government. Why this disparity with my city? Number two is total resident dwellings in region of Peel is 450,000. And out of those 450,000, Brampton is having 182,000, means Brampton has more than 40% of the total dwelling in the region. This also shows that out of 24 regional council at the region, Brampton is only having 6, which means Brampton's representation of the region is only 25% according to the number of dwellings. Why this disparity again? Number 3, when we see the total representation at all 3 cities in course with the population of the city in totality, it shows that nearly 66,000 people are being represented by the regional councillors in Mississauga, and nearly 30,000 people in Caledon, and Brampton 170,000 people per regional councillor. Why this disparity with my city of Brampton? Why Brampton residents should not be represented by more representation at region of Peel? Are we the Bramptonian are paying less taxes and or getting more facilities than any other city in the region of Peel? Number 4, my city of Brampton is the 9th largest city and one of the fastest growing city in Canada. Because of that, the federal and provincial governments also raised the number of member of provincial parliaments and member of parliaments from 4 to 5 in last few years. This is because of the population and economic growth of my city of Brampton. But at this regional level, there's no change from many, many years. I know the motion on the table is only to raise seats for my city. But today I want to request to the chair and all the council members now presented in this meeting today to take right and genuine decision. My city deserves better representation for sure. My city deserves to be represented with all 10 council members to be at the regional council. This will be a genuine decision on the basis of total population as well as with the comparison of all other representation of my neighboring cities. We are a big family in the region of Peel and must grow together with right and genuine representation at all levels of governments. At the end, and based on the population of my city of Brampton as compared to the population of region of Peel, Brampton deserves all 10 regional councillors to be at the region of Peel.
1 minute, please.
Regional government will honor in the essence of fair play and just to the 700,000 people of my city who represent 45 of the population of the region. This is my request. The motion is for to raise only 2 members, but I want to request on basis of all numbers of the residents and everything. I want to request this council of today's meeting to give all the 10 of my councillors as a position of regional council at the region of Peel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Downey.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I know the answer to this question because the delegate just said it. I will ask again, do you believe that Brampton deserves to have all 4 local councillors at the regional table?
Yes.
Do you understand that triple majority leaves that decision in the hands of Mississauga?
I know that. I'm talking only about the numbers. How much population we have, how many people one regional council representing in my city. If you compare all the numbers, then my submission on the basis of this.
So you understand that.
Councillor Downey, those were your 2 questions that you're permitted. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My next speaker is Jotvinder Sodhi. Jotvinder. Can you hear me? My next speaker on my list, delegate number 615, 6.15, Jotvinder Sodhi. Okay, I will move on to the next one, then I'll try to double back. 616, Angela Panacci. Angela? Yeah, I think we see you, but I can't hear you. Angela, are you good to go?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please proceed.
Perfect. Good morning, Council. Good morning, Mr. Chair. I am here today because along with Mayor Thompson, Councillor Innes, and Councillor Downey, Councillor St. Clair, I oppose the reallocation of the 2 Caledon seats to Brampton that equate to losing 40% of Caledon's representation at this regional table. I am upset at how everything happened, but I am not surprised because at the end of the day, I don't expect Brampton or Mississauga to look after Caledon's best interest. What it is important to me is to reiterate the importance of having our 5 seats here at this regional table. At the end of the day, these 5 councillors are the ones that the Caledon residents have democratically elected to represent and look after the interest of all 78,000 residents in Caledon while sitting at the regional table. A previous speaker mentioned how he trusted that council is talented at multitasking. But I really think that given what's happening right now, that we're in the middle of a pandemic, as a taxpayer, my expectation from each councillor is to be working on a plan to help the small businesses, to help the residents, and especially the small businesses, which are the bread and butter of the economy, to navigate COVID. And I can't really agree that we have this under control because we don't. Not creating a situation which leads me to this should not be like what's happening right now in this moment should not be here. It should not be happening. We should not be having a situation where we need to rush through a topic that was scheduled to be discussed in February 2021, as per Councillor Parrish comment on the November 26th regional meeting. A topic of such great importance and impact deserves the proper process and respect. The respect of a mayor having a conversation with his peers and working together towards a solution, not colluding and misappropriating Caledon's voice. Because at the end of the day, that's really what happened on November 26th. I don't believe anyone at this table will say that Brampton should not have the extra 2 councillors or even the extra 4 councillors that was recommended with the Justice Adams report back in 2004. But it should not be at Caledon's expense. You see, we agree that Brampton should have the additional councillors, but not at Caledon, not at the expense of Caledon. We have a problem with the approach and the timing. At all times, it has been mentioned that it was about the province asking the region to find efficiencies. Moving 2 seats from one municipality to another is not being efficient, it's being lazy. However, I recommend that as a united Peel table to ask the province for the additional seats and use your influence to be able to get the additional seats that Brampton needs without taking 40% of Caledon's voice. When we look at the numbers, there is approximately 1.484 million residents in Peel as of 2018, I believe. Each regional councillor in Brampton earns approximately $125,000 between base pay, benefit, card allowance, etc. That would cost each payer, divided by all 3 municipalities, an additional 0.17 cents. And that cost will decrease as Caledon's population grows and as the rest of the municipalities continue to grow. This is efficiency and effective representation throughout while decreasing costs long term. I would also like to echo what has been said and that what you already know but have chosen to ignore. The overall population of Caledon will increase by approximately 300%, the highest growth in the GTA. Now more than ever, Caledon needs to be the one planning Caledon. Mississauga does not know what's best for Caledon, and Brampton does not know what's best for Caledon. Nor do we want the developer of choice to be coming to bully Caledon. Caledon knows what's best for Caledon. We need to ensure that we have the proper representation, not less.
1 minute, Angela. 1 minute.
We must ensure that our Caledon elected officials are the ones directing the growth of this community in the same way that Brampton has had the opportunity to direct its own growth and Mississauga has had the opportunity to direct its own growth. Caledon holds 100% of the region of Peel's prime agricultural land. It is ludicrous to think that Caledon should not have proper representation at the regional table and believe that after what has been done to us right now, that we believe that Brampton and Mississauga will take care and look after our best interest. According to Stats Canada 2016 census, Peel holds 27% of farmland and the majority of it is in Caledon. We're mainly a rural community with our own unique needs, and it is important that those that know and live in the community get to direct its growth. Finally, I do have 2 questions that I would like to have answered, if it's possible, Chair, through the Chair. I would like to ask the Mayor of Brampton, the Mayor of Mississauga, and the Mayor of Caledon if you believe that a walk-on motion to misappropriate Caledon's council seats is the right way in solving Brampton's underrepresentation at the regional table. And my second question is specific to the 5 regional councillors in Caledon. If you are in support of keeping Caledon's 5 seat at the regional table. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Those questions are pending, and certainly the mayors can ask them at the public meeting later. Questions of you, though, at this time are from Councillor Sato.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question. Do you actually feel that it is fair to Mississauga and Brampton that one elected councillor in each of those cities represents and gets 1 vote for up to 100,000 people, and Caledon has 5 votes for fewer people? So and it's just a yes or no. Do you really think that that's fair?
Councillor Cito, I will answer your question once you answer my question. If you think that it's fair, what was done to Caledon.
We're not into debate. Angela, we're not into order. Yeah, you've
Sorry,
been asked
Mr.
a
Chair.
question, Angela. This is not a time. Do you wish to answer the question, Angela?
It's not a matter of whether I think it's fair or not. I didn't make the process. It was a decision by Justice Adams who set
No,
it
I'm
up.
sorry. I
Okay.
asked, do you think it is fair that 5 people from Caledon get 5 votes and represent fewer people than one person in Mississauga or Brampton? That's all I asked you.
Well, it's not
Yes
a yes or no answer.
Is that fair?
It's not a black and white answer. You
All
can't
right, thank you.
compare.
You
Thank you.
obviously don't want to
Thank
answer
you.
the question.
Councillor
Thank you, Mr.
Sato,
Chair.
Angela, I will leave it at that. My next
Yep.
questioner is Councillor Parrish.
Sure.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the delegate if you're really aware of the numbers. Caledon has 5.9% of the population. It contributes 4.7% of the tax revenue, and it has 20.8% of the voting power. So same question that Pat Sato asked you. Do you think it's fair?
I think that what Justice Adams did, he gave those numbers because he knew the growth that was happening, that was going to happen in Caledon. In the same way that he gave Brampton those seats at that time when Brampton did not have the numbers to support it, they, instead of giving them the 4 that Justice Adams recommended, the province gave them an extra seat because it knew of the growth that was going to happen. So to say that, to be so nearsighted and to be so focused on the present when we know that the municipalities plan 20, 30, 40 years in advance, to me, it makes no sense. It's not about efficiency.
Okay.
So if we were to actually look in the future, or if we were to look at it, then we should be thinking about, why does Mississauga get to keep its seats and the control when Brampton is actually going to become bigger than Mississauga?
Stop.
Right?
We're getting into debate. Councillor Parrish, do you have a supplemental
I
question?
have a supplemental question. I'm curious as to where the 300,000 population is coming from. We just had a meeting last week.
I didn't say 300,000. I meant to say 300% growth.
300,000 people will not be realized in Caledon until 2051. And a council in 2051 will qualify for 3 councillors from Caledon, and you're getting them now. So
Okay, I think, Councillor Parrish, you've made the point. I think we're getting into debate. Further questions of clarification, Councillor Medeiros.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you, Angela, for delegating. Yeah, I was just going to point out in terms of population, but you brought an interesting point. So since 2006, there's a justice report. So why do you think Brampton did not get that equity that was put out in the report? So who didn't make the decision to give Brampton the additional councillors, which clearly in 2006, there was an argument that Brampton should have got it. So who was the decision authority? Why haven't we got those seats?
Actually, I would be very interested in knowing the answer to that, because I know that in reading the reports, it was presented to the Minister of Housing and Housing at that time, which was Linda Jeffrey, I believe, and it was brought and it was advocated for Brampton to get the 4th. So I know as a Caledon resident that Caledon has always supported for the extra seats for Brampton to get. So I would say by deduction, it's probably Mississauga. So if Caledon is supporting you, Brampton obviously wants the 4 additional seats, and it was presented by the Justice Adam reports that you should get the 4 additional seats, then it leads me to believe, and I'm making this assumption, I may be wrong, that perhaps Mississauga didn't want to support you.
So it's been 14 years. Yeah, and I appreciate it's been 14 years. We haven't had a decision. And I can tell you 4 years ago, we went down the path, which I know everyone always says they appreciate that Brampton needs more, and everyone supports that Brampton needs more, but yet we never got the support. But this time, would you, speaking
Sorry,
from...
Councillor, you didn't get the support from who?
I'm sorry. Let him finish his question. Your specific question, Councillor Medeiros.
So my question would be, would you not, from Brampton's perspective, finally, after all these years, when we have an agreement, which the numbers is right, and we have full support for Mississauga, why would we not go for this agreement? And I guess what I heard from you, just for clarification...
Well, if you have full support from Mississauga, you have full support from Councillor.
I just want to understand, you would have no problem adding saying that Brampton should have all 4, so you would want to increase regional council an extra 4 seats, and that's my understanding. So Caledon would be, I guess, Caledon residents, or you would be supportive of adding 4 more politicians to enlarging Peel Region.
I would be in support of Brampton having its proper representation, which is what it seems like you've been asking. Now, if you feel that that's too many, as a Brampton councillor, that's up to you and your mayor. But if you're saying that that's too many, then I don't know then why we're having this discussion.
Yeah, Ms. Bonacci, thank you for your response. Thank you for your presentation. I will double back one more time to delegate number 15, Jotvinder Sodhi. Can you hear me now? I wanted to give you one more chance to Jotvinder Sodhi. If not, it brings me down to my last delegate, 617, Sherilyn Roman. Sherilyn.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. To the esteemed members of Regional Council, thank you for providing the time and space for citizens who care about the community to our concerns. I write to express my personal dismay at the misappropriation of due council process on this matter and the resultant potential impact on the Caledon community. Perhaps you're thinking that misappropriation is a strong word not befitting the situation. To misappropriate something is to take something dishonestly for your own use. I would suggest rather strongly that this is exactly what is happening at the regional table, as Brampton, with some assistance, attempts to misappropriate Caledon seats for its own benefit. A move that comes despite the fact that Caledon Council has quite openly supported and continues to support the fact that Brampton should have more representation. We have been your partner in finding solutions to bring about a more equitable distribution of seats. But let me be very clear about this, not at our expense, and I direct that particularly at Mayor Brown. Your cavalier, brazen, and I think underhanded attempt to obtain further seats by taking away from Caledon's representation when we have been a fully supportive partner is particularly egregious. If you're so willing to throw us under the bus, I ask the other members of Regional Council, what will he be willing to do to you without due process? The history of the formation of the Region of Peel is lengthy. Formed in 1974, it was to bring efficiencies of scale to matters of public interest for all citizens of the region, not just Brampton and Mississauga, but Caledon too. Having a shared common approach to the environment, waste removal, water services, snow removal, and more just made good fiscal sense. That's what the Region of Peel is supposed to be about. As I understand it, it was never about representation by population, but rather about the efficiencies to be gained by working together to protect the development of the land on which we all live, work, and play. In other words, it's in our best interests to work together, and it still is. That Mayor Brown initiated this move now is also of concern. As others have stated, it's a global pandemic. We cannot meet or delegate in person, and in fact, perhaps you were hoping folks might be too distracted by their concerns about family, job loss, food insecurity, loneliness, and the threat of dying from COVID to pay too much attention to this move. That's what makes it all the more troubling. As well, that you want to reduce our seats at a table at a time when Caledon is poised for exponential growth over the next 30 years just doesn't make sense. We already account for more than 50% of the region's combined land mass, and our population is set to at least double by 2031. I would politely suggest to you that now is not the time to remove seats from Caledon. Rather, maintaining the status quo is the bare minimum that you should be considering. In the future, you're potentially asking Caledon to partner in the development of a new 400 series highway that will definitely serve all 3 of our regions. There's potential environmental impacts that will most definitely affect those of you farther down the watershed. In the past, you've asked us to support your growth and your infrastructure development, and to this non-political observer, it seems that now that you've breached the outermost reaches of your own borders, you're either seeking to control ours or abandon your fiscal accountability in a time of great growth, even though that we've supported yours every step of the way. Mayor Brown, to you specifically, we've met on numerous occasions. We've had some good conversations. You've even presented me with an award on behalf of your city. I've always taken you at face value and appreciated your early support of wearing masks during this pandemic, but my faith is now shaken. I ask you respectfully, what faith can we have in due process over any issue concerning Caledon in the future when you were willing to bring a walk-on motion to the table, especially during this global pandemic, and at a time when it could be reasonably expected that Caledon's voice might even take on a greater presence at the table? What faith can we have from each of you, our regional partners, in the future when your current actions speak to collusion?
1 minute, please.
Thank you. What faith can our citizens have in the ability to obtain social, health, mental wellness, and infrastructure supports from services across our region during what is potentially our greatest time of need, when even at the regional level, there's no evidence of willingness to work together except by Caledon councillors? Caledon's at a crossroads, and I, along with a great majority of our community, implore you to do the right thing. That is unequivocally to maintain every single one of the Caledon seats at the regional table. Failure to do so otherwise is a failure of the democratic process, as was this initial walk-on motion. It's unacceptable to cut our representation by 40%, and it's that simple. I'm asking you to reconsider. Mayor Brown, despite your actions, Caledon is still willing to support your request for more seats because we believe in due process and in doing the right thing the right way.
Cheryl, your concluding sentence, please.
I guess I'm learning more today about this entire process, and with the triple majority on top of everything that I've already just said, my concern now is even if Mississauga, even if we had, a cure for COVID or voted to promote world peace, Mississauga would vote it down. And just
thank you for your presentation. That concludes my list of registered delegates. Is there any other person present virtually who wishes to make another oral submission? Hearing no one through the chair, I do acknowledge in terms of written submissions, to date, we have received 64 written submissions for the proposed bylaw. Madam Clerk, that's our tally as of the last few moments. So with thanks to those 64 individuals who have also made written submissions, are there any other additional written submissions to be presented at this time? Which again can also be done through the email log that we have allowed. Written submissions can be made up to any time to the clerk at regional.clerk@peelregion.ca up until the close of today's public meeting, which of course is imminent. Any written submissions that were received after the posting of the revised agenda up until the close of this meeting will be appended to the report of the public meeting that will be considered at the special regional council meeting later today. With that, I want to thank all of the speakers for your interests and presentations during the meeting. The written comments together with those oral submissions expressed at this meeting have been noted. This brings to a conclusion the public meeting regarding the proposed bylaw to change the composition of regional council. I hereby declare the public meeting officially closed with special gratitude to everyone for the very professional and courteous manner in which this discussion was had. We will be reconvening our public meeting at 1:30. Thank you to all.